Colorado falls at Cal, 26-3. Brian, I hope the Bay Area is treating you better than it treated the Buffs out there this afternoon.
Yeah, hey, I've had a good time, but the Buffs have not. I saw Brady Russell, walking out of the locker room, and he said, "How's it going?" I said, "Good. How are you?" And he goes, "Eh." And I said, "I know it's just kind of a reaction for me to say how's it going, but I know how you're doing." And they're obviously very frustrated, and this was not a good performance for the Buffs. I mean, it was a pretty ugly football game.
I guess we'll start with a few positives and then kind of work our way towards a lot of the negatives that happened today. And there's quite a few of those. I didn't think you start positive wise. You got to start with Brandon Rice's 67-yard kickoff return. In 13 games with the Buffs, that's now his fourth play of 60 yards or longer. And good on Brandon Rice. I guess we're already going to be a little bit negative here, but after the game, he took ownership of the drop he had early on. So he made a big play and then showed some maturity post-game with you there outside the locker room.
Yeah, and credit to him. He did take some blame for that, and he is right. He had a drop on the first play, and little things do matter, and maybe that does turn the tide. But certainly, it's not on him. I mean, I thought that was kind of a rare drop. We haven't seen that from him, but his kickoff return set up the only points for this offense, and I mean, it's crazy. That took it to the 33-yard line. And they still almost didn't do anything with it, but they got a field goal out of it. And that's the only time they got inside the Cal 40-yard line all day. And it took a kickoff return to get there.
And Cole Becker, now that's his fifth made field goal in a row after he missed his first three as a Buff. So he's bounced back. 2 penalties for CU, tied for a season low today. And then the defense limiting Cal to just 3 points in the second half. Cal had scored on all their possessions in the first half. So you gotta, if you're gonna point all the negatives, which we are here, you gotta credit the defense for coming out there in the second half and playing better.
Yeah, I was in the middle of kind of writing that right now as we're doing this, but you got to give them credit. That's one thing that we saw today was the defense did make adjustments. I mean, Chase Garbers did a great job against them today and really kind of had his way with them in the first half, but the second half was a totally different story, and the Buffs I thought played a lot better. Carl Durrell said they really kind of simplified the scheme at halftime and made things a little easier on guys. And they came out and played a pretty good game in the second half defensively.
And Josh Watts obviously has been solid all season, continues to be one of the better punters in the country. So I think that's probably it in terms of positives. Can you think of anything else?
Well, I got one more, and I'm looking outside, and it's like starting to pour rain right now. I'm still sitting in the press box, and I guess one positive is that the rain held up. I mean, that was something we thought might happen during the game, but it didn't rain during the game at least. So I'll throw that as a positive.
Well, maybe the rain could have stopped Chase Garbers, who looked like Khalil Tate at times out there.
That's true. So I guess we'll make that a negative. So we'll put that on both categories.
But goodness gracious, Brian, 104 yards of offense. They averaged just 2.3 yards per play today. As you pointed out on Twitter, just 13 yards of total offense in the second half. I mean, that's embarrassing, and maybe even – there's a better word than embarrassing. It maybe feels like that's even worse performance than embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad. And I actually kind of had to laugh because in the post game or after the game, one of the Cal riders asked me, "Hey, Brian, when was the last time the Buffs had as few as 104 yards of offense?" I said, 4 weeks ago against Minnesota. I said, this is only their second worst offensive performance of the year, which is sad. But I mean, that second half was atrocious. And 35 yards rushing, which, I went back and looked at them. I forgot about this until looking at it, but 5 carries into the game, the Buffs had 40 yards rushing. So the last 23 carries, they have -5. Their first 3 carries were a 14-yard run by Brendan Lewis, a 3-yard run by Jarek, and then a 14-yard run by Jarek Broussard. After that, they almost did nothing, and it kind of started with that failed fourth down, conversion in the first quarter, but -5 yards on 23 carries is horrible. I mean, that's Minnesota-like, and the Buffs just couldn't get anything done.
Carl Durrell was struggling for answers when you had him post-game. The one thing he did say, though, that hey, this is not Brendan Lewis's fault. By and large, he's not been given any time back there. He sacked 6 times today. He's now been sacked 22 times this fall. I get that Casey Roddick wasn't cleared till camp started, and Frank Phillip came back from a shoulder injury. But some of these offensive line issues should have been fixed by now, and we're not seeing that group get much better. I guess a little bit against Arizona last week, but even against Arizona, they struggled to clear running lanes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this was a Cal team that had 10 sacks all year coming into this game, and they get 6 of them today. And you're right. I mean, Brendan Lewis has had his struggles, but this offensive line has been really bad. And it's a veteran group. They mentioned all this youth playing up front, but it's really just one guy, and it's Jake Wiley, and he's a third-year player. There's a lot of veterans playing on this offensive line, and they're not playing very well. And I don't know if it's the talent level on this team. I don't know if it's the scheme, the way they're being coached. I think that's one thing you got to start with is, how are they being coached? And you got to look at Mitch Rodriguez and say, what's he doing? I mean, what is he doing with his offensive line? Why are they not playing better? Because they played better last year.
Yeah, and Will Sherman's a good player, but you can't tell me his absence and then, having a couple guys that are banged up, and there's no excuse for what they've put on the field in terms of their performance this year. If things weren't bad enough, Nate Landman got banged up. He got banged up in the second quarter, got retaped, went back in, and then he got banged up later. He did become the sixth buff to record 400 career tackles. If Nate Landman's not healthy down the stretch, it's hard to garner any optimism for this football team.
Yeah, I mean, at least guys around him have played well, but yeah, I mean, we saw last year what happened when Nate didn't play. I think they're maybe better equipped to handle that than they were a year ago, but he did come back and play. So, it's unfair to speculate that he wouldn't play, but yeah, I mean, you look at him go down a little bit, and you have to wonder if there's an issue there. But certainly, this defense would struggle without him. But I look at it right now, it's like, does it matter? I mean, if they could play really good defense, and it still may not matter because this offense just can't score. I mean, they're not very good. I mean, this was a Cal. We know Cal's played pretty good defense under Justin Wilcox, but not this year. I mean, they're ranked, I think, 9th in the Pac-12 in points allowed, and they totally shut down the CU offense.
Yeah. We heard about the halftime adjustments and the defense comes out and plays better. And Darrell kind of alluded to some of the things that Cal was doing offensively surprised them early on. I get you can have different wrinkles, but by game 7 of the season, shouldn't CU have had a better plan defensively going against this team?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, you look at what Cal does. I certainly don't scout them like the coaches do, but from what I've seen, I didn't see a whole lot of different things from what I've seen on watching their games. And I mean, it's Chase Garver's doing some RPO and making plays with his feet and hitting some receivers, and they did throw to some different guys that we haven't seen before, but it was really so much of this was the tight end. I mean, they hit a lot of passes at the tight end today, and credit them. I thought Cal was kind of creative in some of their play calls, which CU Buff fans would be like, where is that on our side? I loved their 4th down play that they had, and the Buffs just continue to do the same thing on short yardage. It's just turn around and hand to the running back and hope that you get to the line, and it doesn't work. So, yeah, you would think you'd have a better plan going against this Cal offense, but they didn't.
Drew Carter gets thrown in there late in the game, only attempted one pass and incompletion. This is a situation now. He's played 4 games. If he plays again, Brian, they better be meaningful snaps. Otherwise, the decision to have him go out there in victory formation against Arizona, that's going to draw a lot of criticism.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 games. And I agree with you. We talked about it last week, but that's just a weird situation to put him in, to not give him the experience against, ASU and USC, but then put him out in victory formation is weird. But, I'm not sure Carl Durrell worries too much about that. I mean, I think at this point, the way this team's going, I think they're going to get blown out more. And there's probably a couple more opportunities that Drew Carter's going to get in there. It may not matter anyway.
I know you've got a deadline coming up. Just lastly here, the Oregon kickoff was selected by Fox, so that's going to be a nationally televised game in Eugene next Saturday, 12:30 p.m. local time, 1:30 Mountain kickoff. Oregon beat UCLA today. Obviously no one's going to predict Colorado to even put up a fight in this game, but what are just your thoughts now with Colorado, having that national stage? It's important not to get embarrassed again with the number of people that will tune into a nationally televised game on Fox.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned that the way things are going, Colorado's going to get blown out again. It's going to happen a week from now. I mean, yeah, I'll just say right now, I know we're going to do a preview video later this next week and give our predictions. I'll come up with a score, but based on what I'm seeing, I don't know how you can predict anything other than CU getting blown out at Oregon. If you can't score, I mean, we've seen CU go up to Oregon, with offenses that are, fairly decent and not be able to score. It's just hard for me to imagine the Buffs looking decent even against Oregon this week. It could be an ugly situation on national TV.
Feel bad for all the CU fans that, they kind of worked their whole Saturday around watching the Buffs. And I mean, today, that was really, really hard to watch. And so hopefully here down these last 5 games, they can find some semblance of respectability, because it's not fun being a CU fan right now.
Yeah, and real quick about that Oregon game. Can you imagine Kayvon Thibodeau watching this this film as he scouts this and like, man, he's going to get 6 sacks on his own next week. So yeah, I feel for the Buff fans out there. It's tough covering this team. So I can't imagine, when you're a diehard fan trying to watch this, it's brutal right now.
All right, Brian, safe travels back to Colorado. And we'll analyze and have predictions for that Oregon game. But you kind of let the cat out of the bag, and I don't think there's going to be any people surprised at our predictions there. Again, have a safe trip back to Colorado.
Thanks, Adam.